what was to deal with waterfall projects. We were bound to weird schedules in our projects, super long projects, totally tied up to a calendar. We'd better be prepared at the moment that we released the software in the past, because it was like, there it goes, release into production. Big time, everything stopped. Many of us lived through that. Like, the world literally stopped. No one touched the servers. No one, let's do it at midnight. Several things that happened because of this Big Bang release. That's why we couldn't like roll back or easily. If something went wrong when we were releasing into production, there was a defect or any problem, any situation that we detected, we can't go back. The monolith has to be turned off completely, rebooted, uninstalled, reinstalled. The changes were so complicated and so difficult. AI, which is coming to take our jobs away. How do we do it? How do we survive this Skynet Armageddon that we are seeing coming to us? We need to be prepared and develop new powers.
Hi everyone. Now, without further delays, I would move on to our next session, which is a very interesting topic. It's on mutant evolutions of testers and QA by Leonardo Melendez, DevRel performance advocate. Um, a little bit about him. Leandro is an avid performance test manager and consultant. He is a podcast host on performance, presenter at testing conferences, and many others. He has almost 20 years of experience in IT business, ranging from developer to DBA to project manager and many more things. The last 10 years, he has been working on QA, especially on the performance and load testing areas, using various tools that are used for the performance testing. So I would now like to call Leandro on stage and would love to hear more about this topic. Hi, Leandro.
Hello, good day, everyone, for letting me come here, share a little bit of knowledge, and have fun with everyone, which is most important. So, shall I begin?
Yes, you can take over. You can share your slides and
Okay. So, hello, everybody, and let's start selecting here the share screen function. You're going to see a little bit more of my screen than usual because I don't have the double screen or the special backgrounds that you're used to. Okay. Um, So, as you probably noticed by the topic of this session, I'm going to talk a little bit about mutant evolution, superpowers, and modernity for testers and QA engineers, people, professionals from all the levels. This is going to be everyone develops powers and becomes special. So, before anything, who am I? I got a brief introduction. I am Leandro Melendez. I'm a dev advocate at Grafana K6, promoting a little bit observability, performance testing, best practices, and of course, modern testing, which is what you are going to be learning today. I am also known as Señor Performo at SRPRF in most social networks. You can find me there and follow up on all the fun stuff and nonsense that I keep posting, presenting, and teaching. I am the host of Perf Bytes Español, the podcast. And if you are not so used at Spanish speaking language, I am also a co-host of Perf Bytes in English, trying to generate more content, help everyone to improve their performance testing practices. Paired up to this, I have a YouTube channel, Señor Performo. Check it ESP for Español or ENG for English. If you want to practice your Spanish, I invite you to the Spanish channel or the English channel, ENG. There, I try to put as well lots of content, help everyone, promotions, explaining videos, podcast videos, and any other thing that I can think of. If you haven't, please, SRPERFENG for English. Subscribe, the bell, all those good old YouTube stuff. I highly appreciate it if you want to go and check it. And last, I have published a book around traditional load testing projects. It's called The Hitchhiking Guide to Load Testing Projects, where I try to explain also in a very fun and entertaining way how to drive a traditional kind of waterfall way performance testing project. Load testing is very important. They are different, but different topic that what we are going to be talking today. I'm not going to be delving that much into performance, even as I am senior performer and all those things. We're going to be talking in QA in general and lots of IT, modernity, new technologies, and new things. But before I dive into the topic, I want to thank a lot, as usual, to the test drive community to invite me to ConfX and letting me share the knowledge with you all and to help in any way that I can, and hopefully share a good moment of fun with you. So I'm gonna divide this like a superhero story where we developed mutant powers and claws and rays through the eyes and all those good old things that we are familiar with. And I'm gonna start with the past, the golden age when everything was in a couple of inks drawn, very basic stories, villains, and as well the development of the hero was pretty plain and basic, similar to how we have been in the past with QA. The challenges, the villains, the adventures were different. And we didn't need that many powers in the past, that many abilities. Well, we needed, but they were accurate or adequate for those stories, for those times. Let's delve into those old stories first so that you see the perspective and how things were in the past. We all lived through them, so let's take a look. As I said, in the past, we had different times. The stories were not so complex. We had different goals, and that was not so long ago. Let me quickly move this away from because I don't want this to be on the screen. QA was different long ago. And as I said, not so long ago, this was maybe 5, 10, 15 years ago. It was totally a different panorama, a different set of stories, a different set of adventures that we used to experience in our QA processes, in our QA technologies, the challenges and how we had to do things were very different. How different, you may be asking? So to start, in the past, we had Waterfall. I am showing you here Calendar Man, a villain from, I think it was Batman, from the past, from the comics that nowadays we see like Calendar Man. That's kind of a ridiculous thing, right? But um, this resembled to me a lot like what was to deal with waterfall projects. We were bound to weird schedules in our projects, super long projects totally tied up to a calendar where we had our phases. The projects will last for several months, even years. I personally remember being involved in multi-year projects that were so different because at the end of that calendar time that we had is where our product, our software with quality tested, verified, and checked would reach our customers production. And once it was there, most of the time there was no way back. It was released. Probably we could do some updates, patches, but that was it. Big changes at once. And this brought several problems or situations in the past. This waterfall, as many know, had phases. The teams were divided by those phases. Many times, one team wouldn't see the other after the phase was finished. And this created a lot of disconnection. And QA people had to be almost mind readers to know what was coming from the past phase of the project. And this made it even more complicated because we had to be ready for have everything as ready as possible before we got to do this release, this big bang release. This was like a massive foe, a massive villain that we had to defeat at once because it was going to happen. It happened everything, everywhere, all at once. I know that's a movie. Highly recommended if you haven't seen it. Oscar winner, best movie. But everything happened, like everything in our software happened on everywhere on all of our infrastructure and all of our production at once. Boom, there we had it. And we'd better be prepared at the moment that we released the software in the past, because it was like, there it goes, release into production, big time, everything stopped. Many of us lived through that. Like the world literally stopped. No one touched the servers. No one, let's do it at midnight. Several things that happened because of this Big Bang release. And this Big Bang release needed to do a make as sure as possible that it was with quality and well before we released. Before, because after it got to production, there was no turning back. It was very difficult releasing into production. Production was a different monster than what we have today. Why? Speaking of these different monsters, production, this monster was the monolith, a block here, a big chunk, like a piece of hardware, and that was everything that we had. Everything on our infrastructure, our sometimes even the database components, the front end, the back end, everything was controlled from that single box. It was separated, monolithic applications, a monolithic back end. So whenever we needed to, that's why we couldn't like roll back or easily. If something went wrong when we were releasing into production, there was a defect or any problem, any situation that we detected, we can't go back. The monolith has to be turned off completely, rebooted, uninstalled, reinstalled. The changes were so complicated and so difficult that we wouldn't dare to do that many changes after we released into production. Another problem that we had, the software was monolithic and thick on the back end, but as well in the front end. Our applications, to start, we had the desktop applications, big Windows application that we had to click. We only could do a few things. And then we came to web, I would say maybe 2.0, 1.0, where the front end was coming back and forth sent by the monolith. We had the page view statuses, um, all these session variables to tell us in which screen are we and what type of front end the monolith has to send to us, everything in a big chunk as well. So automation for QA on those situations was like trying to figure out riddles from this application, reverse engineering, figuring out how to do things. And it was challenging because we needed special apps to automate in that. Only this app, commercial app, that could help us. We had to automate lots of steps because we couldn't get to the testable or the point in the flow that we wanted to test before going through several steps. That made our automations slow, bulky, heavy to run. It was complicated. And as well, there were, speaking of the tools that we had to use, they were thick, heavy. And because of that, they were expensive, pretty expensive, because several, well, there were not that many vendors. There were just a few set of tools. And because of that, they had to be licensed. They were heavy installers, very heavy, very complicated to gather. And that made that only the QA people were a little bit like King Arthur of the Round Table. The only ones that could lift the sword from the stone were the QA people. The rest of the team were like, I wouldn't even dare to touch your uh, King Arthur sword. It's the King Arthur sword. I know it's named Excalibur, right? But only QAs could use them and knew how to use them, because the tools also were complicated to be able to automate into the platforms and solutions that were, as I said, thick software. We were the only ones that knew how to use those tools. So this has changed. The panorama we are facing, you can see here how the villain looked in the past and how modernity has changed the silly villains that we used to face before. And these challenges, the stories, everything around them, and the heroes are changing. How are things changing? So there are new challenges that we are gonna be facing. New supervillains, new processes, new methods, new technologies. Everything has changed. How? Okay. So first, we have agile methodologies, the speed demon of this time. These agile methodologies force us, because before we had like our calendar man, little by little, phases, we were moving one at a time. Right now, it's a speed. Everything is changing continuously. Our roles have changed. We have to work based on that speed that new projects require. And we receive constant feedback from those projects, from that front end, from production. And that makes us to change again, brings more changes, more speed, and it feels a little bit frantic, like this. I think the name was Zoom, from this Flash villain that is chasing after us constantly. Just a second. So, what else has been brought up by the agile methodologies? Well, we have continuous. Lots of elements changing, being updated at the same time, tiny, small elements, but they can break our stuff. They frequently keep happening. They are small, they are very focused, but they continuously bring into our system into production, which is the scariest thing for traditional superheroes from the past. We get lots of changes, lots of releases, lots of updates, lots of changes of course and direction, because we may have this humongous plan in the past that was unmovable, monolithic, fixed, a big chunk that set in stone. Now everything keeps changing. Oh, we see that this new module that we needed to release, the customer is not liking it. They are not using it. It has, let's change, even probably destroy that module, completely disappear it, and focus on what is important. Even not only modules in the system, tasks, things to do, not only requirements. So continuous brings with paired up with these agile methodologies and fast pace, we are surrounded by lots of little tiny changes that are not trying to attack us, but that we have to put kitten in boxes, right? Now, another change that we have nowadays is the service and microservice infrastructure. This means that our applications can bring different powers, different elements from different areas. I'm showing you here the Super Scroll, a being that could pull and copy all the powers of the Fantastic Four from different sources, and now he has them all. Our modern applications are like that. Could be a web front end, could be a desktop application, could be a mobile application in our cell phones, could be an Internet of Things application, but all of them are communicating through services and microservices to the backend. How is this backend? It's not a single backend anymore. These services and microservices have changed things so that we don't have the monolith anymore. We could, some organizations do, but the standard nowadays is that those things are spread all over the place. And where is this place? The cloud, the almighty cloud. The cloud is spread all over the world. Yes, it's ephemeral, it's out there, it's like a spirit. No, but in real life, we have a data center, let's say in Bombay, we have another data center in London, and the third component is, I don't know, in Dallas, Texas. So our application could be, thanks to this service and microservice structure, be talking to multiple clouds, multiple components. Just one application having multiple backends. This is a big change. And another change is that this cloud not only is distributed, has multiple components all over the place, but it's elastic, it's changeable and mutable, multipliable. You can have multiple instances of the same service and microservice or API. So these, lots of problem, lots of trouble. Try to grab and hold this cloud is going to be an interesting challenge, because as well, It's on physical servers, but it feels ephemeral because it's out there. It's secret. It's somewhere. It's not substantial. We cannot literally touch it. Like in the past, we could go downstairs and touch the monolith, the server that we had in our data center. Now, there's another challenge that we're facing nowadays a lot: open source. And this open source software is seen like this weirdly shaped mutant by that the pieces are from many places. You can see through it, you can see the code, but many organizations are uneasy about open source. And like, they won't give me support. How am I gonna survive with that open source? There's no warranty. No one is gonna come to save me after I embrace this weird mutant with different pieces and uh, falling skin. And as well, if it's public, if the code of this open source is out there are known vulnerabilities to it, right? How are you expecting me to use this or face this open source if everyone knows what is happening with it? And there's no intellectual property. What if I start to create something around it for my testing or for my system? Uh, who's going to protect me? Can I use it? Can I sell it? Lots of challenges around it. And as well, there's a relaxed oversight. Who decides? Who controls this open source? Who tells me that it's under this certification, this principle, this requirement, governmental checks? It's open source. It's free. It's open. It's for everyone. Big challenges with this, but we must embrace this monster. And there's a lot of things, many, many more changes that we are facing, many more villains that we are facing nowadays in IT, in projects, in general, in our modern software. To start, as I mentioned, Internet of Things. How are we going to test these things? How are we going to deal with them and manage not only applications that are not in the desktop, under platforms that we are used to, that our tools, the tools that we know can help us? How are we going to do it? As well, we have containers, the Dockerization of the IT world. How to test Docker? What do we should we pay attention to? Of course, because it brings several more risks. To be on a container has its advantages, yes, but if we don't cover for the risks, the quality risks that being in a containerized environment that can bring, we will be unprotected. We will be unprepared to challenge these foes. Kubernetes, that's another one related to Docker. How many Dockers can we create? Shall we grow them vertically, horizontally? Do we kill them? Are they consuming a lot of resources from our cloud bill? There are several things. Repositories, the code of our automations, solutions, software, implementations, database, pipelines, all of that should be worked on right nowadays in a repository. There's no more sharing folders or the shared drive in the central server or a Google Drive or whatever drive you want to think of. The repositories are starting to be a big component of modern software, and QA should be able to face it, because everything, again, code, QA code, automation code, pipelines. And speaking of pipelines, CICD, we're facing as well continuous development integration, that our QA process should be integrated into it. And not to mention the almighty AI, which is coming to take our jobs away. How do we do it? How do we survive this Skynet Armageddon that we are seeing coming to us? We need to be prepared and develop new powers, new abilities, and be able to save John Connor and mankind. But we must evolve. We need to develop, yeah, how we used to have our powers in the past was okay. We did our job. But as you see, we have several new challenges. We need to evolve. But how? What new powers do we need to develop in these modern challenges, super challenges, because they are becoming super challenges that we're going to be facing, to fight for justice, quality, good systems, and many more things. So first, we got to get early into QA. In the past, we were supposed to enter on the testing phase. God knows how many months, weeks after everything happened, everything was built, compiled, and ready pretty much to ship. and we went into the testing phase. Not anymore. Testing should not happen in a separate phase. No, it shouldn't be. Even now that we have the sprints and the continuous, it should start at the same time that the sprint begins, as early as possible. Before the project, I like to call this the day -1. Before the project begins, start setting rules, best practices, and how are we gonna guarantee that we have quality in our systems. And before every sprint, on the sprint planning meeting or the review meeting, we need to know what QA tasks are going to be done during the sprint, not at the end of the sprint. Start the sprint doing QA activities. There are changes that you need to do. It's not waiting for the developer to finish. It's not waiting for everyone. Why? Because we need to share the powers in our team. Everyone is QA. I know that some organizations, everyone is sales. Yeah, we need to. But here, everyone should be QA and join our powers to make sure that we form this Captain Planet with quality and that our software comes out well continuously. We need to share with everyone the importance of quality, the tools that we are going to use. Yeah, the tools. Everyone in the team should know a little bit about our QA tools, observability, instrumentation, defects, tracking, everything, all the tasks. Everyone should be part of the team. And how can we also achieve that? We need to share and switch the powers that we all have. This means these T-shaped and E-shaped teams that, yeah, today I need to be a developer. I turn into a developer. Well, I change hats. It's the traditional thing that they say. And be able to collaborate with each other. Hey, the QA person has been hit by this boss that is supposed to hit us one day. What do we do? No problem. We all can change our power a little bit into QA and help with it because it has been shared with us. We understand it. We have been taught. Everyone in the team can switch a little bit. And speaking of being able to automate and switch into QA and help, even if I'm a developer, if I'm a product owner, if I am the, I don't know, Scrum Master, the key is as well, I think, that we share and choose the weapons wisely. There are multiple tools in QA. We need to use as many as needed. Don't try to have one tool, the QA tool, the sword that only one person can wield. No, lots of tools, lots of weapons for lots of situations. These tools have to be embraced by all the team, have to be able to execute quickly and lean, because we are going to integrate our automations that everyone can use, everyone can open and read. We're going to put them in the pipeline. It has to be fast, lean, and continuously keep running. How? Well, we need to get off the pyramid, the Aztec pyramid of automation sacrifices. That's a whole other talk. But at the top, there are sacrifices. Everyone keeps automating for full end-to-end and front-end tests. We need to get off, automate more at the unit level and at the protocol level or service API level. Super important. Now, we need to embrace the change. Everything is evolving, everything is changing, and will keep changing. And we cannot stick to our guns and our old ways. We need to see what we can change to do a better QA. And there's much more. I'm noticing that I'm getting short on time. I don't want to be late. I hope that you enjoyed this presentation. I thank you very much. El Bat Hombre thanks you as well. And I hope that you learned a little bit, you had fun. And if you have any questions that I don't manage to answer right now, I invite you to reach out to me, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all of those platforms. You can find me, send me a note, any questions, and I'll be more than happy to help. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that, Leandro. It was an amazing session. Especially like the effects that you gave in the slides made it really interesting. So we have few questions. While I'm taking this question, just prompting everyone that if you have any other questions, please drop them in the Q&A tab and we will be taking them. So the first question we have is mutation testing cost effective? Do we have any checkpoints on it? What are the main goals of mutation testing?
So Those were three questions, but answer number one, it has an initial cost. This change for everything, people learning new skills, changing the perspective, enabling new team members. You need some infrastructure, you need some projects, products, software to enable this mutation, this evolution. At the beginning, it can feel like a big cost, but trust me, the return on investment for that, once it's rolling, it's impressive. You will get a lot of benefits out of that. Um, Checkpoints. Well, I wouldn't say hard milestones, or you need to evolve towards what I am describing, but the nature of your team will dictate what are the checkpoints that you need to be moving through. Some things that I recommended here may not apply to your team, or many more that sadly, because of time, I couldn't get into them. So it's variable. Just try to make sure that you are hitting more or less the goals of embracing and not stopping the team. You are part of the agile and continuous team now. You are not the gate keeper at the end that you shall not pass. No, you need to see how you help everyone to get on release at the end of the sprint. Those are the main goals. I mean, you need to get by the end of the sprint with quality and releasing continuously into production. If you're releasing elsewhere, you may not be agile, but that's another talk as well.
Okay. Thank you so much for that answer. We have another question. You're passionately into performance testing, performance engineering. As we talk about the future here, how do you see performance testing engineering changing in coming years?
So performance testing has been changing from what it was 5, 10 years ago. Is not at all how we should be doing it nowadays. It's changing and it will keep changing. Most of all, you should not be doing that many, I call them bolts, big ass load tests. You should focus. I have also the Chihuahua sized load testing, the tiny little dogs. Your load testing should be tiny, quick, efficient, and frequent. The challenges as well, what is coming is that performance testing is becoming a blurred line that divides performance testing from SRE and continuous performance observability. It's becoming a little bit more of you knowing the performance and polishing it from one user, two users, five user, and not obsessing that much into these huge events. That yes, they will come. You will have always your Taylor Swifts that will bring down Ticketmaster. You need to test for that, but it's completely separate from continuous processes. If you have this big event, that's traditional performance load testing. But for continuous, you need to do little things continuously, frequently, and at a time uh, to guarantee and not to stop the pipeline. We need a frozen branch. No, 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 nothing of that. Several changes, yes.
Got it, got it. Thank you so much for that
And
answer.
tool wise, the tools are evolving. You need to embrace other tools. Sorry.
Yeah. So we have one more question left. I think we'll just quickly take that up and move on to the next session. What are important skills for testing in Kubkernetes or microservices?
So for Kubernetes and microservices, Kubernetes understand well containers, how they are managed, how do they mutate and change over time. Those are the key things that you will face as a problem. At times for testing, is it coming well? Is it being spawned? The pods, what happens with them? It's really important. And for services and microservices, make sure that you understand how APIs and REST work. It's just a request most of the time, HTTP, and that you will receive a response. If you understand those and how the protocol, because we have gRPC, we have WebSockets and many other protocols for APIs. If you understand that you're just bound to receive a message and be able to test it, you'll be good to go. Understand the tier, the channel, and the request and response. That's the biggest.
Got it. Thank you so much, Leandro. I think all the questions are over. It was a lovely session by you. And really, I can see in the chat also, everyone enjoyed it a lot, learned a lot. Thank you once again, Leandro.
Thank you very much, and thank you everyone for enduring my silly presentation. Hope you enjoyed, and see you next time.
Bye.